It's my pleasure.
Okay. The National Assembly and the task, maybe a tough task, maybe the tough task of fixing Nigeria. Now, fixing Nigeria is not one man's job or indeed one tier of government, but the National Assembly being a key participant in this project, alongside the executive and not just the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, that we're talking about Nigeria needing fixing and that it is a tough task. Let me ask you, first of all, Senator, of your assessment of the performance in that regard of the Ninth Senate.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, the National Assembly is suspected to play a very prominent and pivotal role towards the driving the agenda of any government, as clearly enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended, because the National Assembly, as per Section 4, is vested with the power of lawmaking for the peace, order, and good governance of the country, while the executive is vested with the power of executing laws made by the executive, by the legislature for the peace, order, and good governance of the country, and then the judiciary for the purpose of interpretation of the laws, while there is conflict between individuals or between the federal government and the state, or between the various component states that make the Nigerian nation state. So having regard to this constitutional forbidden, the powers of the National Assembly or the role of the National Assembly in the process of driving the developmental agenda of any government cannot be relegated to the background. And sequel to that, the Ninth Senate and indeed the Ninth National Assembly, to which I belong to as a member of the House of Representatives, has done tremendously well in the discharge of that onerous responsibility of lawmaking for the peace, order, and good governance of the country, as clearly exemplified by the avalanche of robust and positive impact-making bills that were passed by the Ninth Senate and indeed by extension the Ninth National Assembly, that has positively impacted the lives of the people. And just to mention a few, for example, the Petroleum Industry Act that has defied all passage by all national assemblies since 1999 has been passed by the Ninth Senate and by extension the Ninth National Assembly. And the National Assembly for that deserves a pat on the back, because it has transformed the petroleum industry. And as we all know, the petroleum industry is the lifeway of the Nigerian economy, Nigeria being a mono economy that depends on oil for vast majority of its revenue. So the Petroleum Industry Act that was passed by the National Assembly has really transformed the petroleum industry, made it very competitive, made it transparent, and has attracted a lot of much needed investment to the sector, as well as the avalanche of the various constitutional reforms and electoral reforms that were passed by the Ninth National Assembly with a view to making our electoral system much more transparent and credible, so that at the end of the day, whatever decision that was taken or results that were announced is a replica of the wishes and aspirations of the people. So looking at the various bills that were passed by the National Assembly, particularly the 9th National Assembly, and that were assented to by Mr. President, I think the 9th National Assembly deserves a pat on the back and has kept off to its responsibility of lawmaking for the peace, order, and good governance of the country as per Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. Now on to the 10th Assembly, of which you are a part. And of course, we don't have a crystal ball to look into and determine what is going to be in the future. But the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, is giving something of an indication of how the National Assembly will function at a Thanksgiving in an article that was written by a veteran journalist. He's given the indication that the National Assembly will function. The current National Assembly will rally around and support the programs of the current administration by eliminating all inhibiting policies affecting the progress and development of the country. Now, that's all well and good, but there is the very reason that we have these 3 tiers of government. It's not for them to be opposing each other, but to remove any semblance of one rubber stamping the other, so that there shall be, a freeness and a fairness, and indeed, at the end of the day, the Constitution shall be supreme. Now, in this whole question, there was a sense in which the 9th Assembly was accused by, observers of, this whole matter of rubber stamping. It probably didn't come out as clearly as they could have, and so there is the worry that I hope this won't continue now, and that's why what the Senate President has said, that the current Assembly will rally around and support the programs of the current administration. But surely that shouldn't be willy-nilly.
The problem is that Nigerians misinterpret or have a very different perception of the relationship that is supposed to exist between the legislature and the executive. The relationship between the executive and the legislature should be a relationship that is mutually symbiotic relationship. Mutually symbiotic relationship in the sense that both the executive and the legislature were elected by the people with a view to delivering dividends of democracy to their doorsteps. In the process of discharging that sacred responsibility of delivery of dividends of democracy to the doorstep of the people, there is a need for the executive and the legislature to understand each other and then work together without necessarily either the executive or the legislature surrendering its independence to either arm of the government and then deliver dividends of democracy to the people. So this question of the National Assembly being reduced into a rubber stamp of the legislature, of the executive arm of government, does not hold water. There are instances when the legislature will rise up to the occasion and then fiercely and jealously guards and protects its independence, where there is clearly an encroachment or deliberate steps being taken by the executive arm of government to encroach upon the powers of the legislature of lawmaking for the peace, order, and good governance of the country. And that is why you can see on various occasions where there are invitations to members of the executive arm of government, whether either out of executive arrogance or executive recklessness, they refuse to honor the invitation of the legislature invokes the relevant provisions of the Constitution and wields the big stick with a view to forcing members of the legislature to appear before the legislature to account for their acts, whether their acts of omission or commission in the discharge of the functions of their office. So this notion of the executive, the legislature has been reduced to an appendage or a rubber stamp of the executive does not hold water again, because there are instances where the legislature jealously guards and protects its independence, but without necessarily relegating to the background the need for the two arms of government to work in a mutually symbiotic relationship with a view to delivering dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. And again, what people should realize is that, for example, both in the 9th and the 10th National Assembly, the APC is the majority party, while the executive arm of government is controlled by the APC. And we have a commonality of vision and programs as enunciated in the manifesto of our party that we promise the people we are going to deliver by the time we are voted into government. So because of that, and the fact that we are both from the APC, both the executive and the legislature are from the APC, and there is commonality of programs and manifesto, there is consensus at IDEM at that level between the executive and the legislature to deliver dividends of democracy to the doorstep of the people. And then at a point, there is even a committee that was formed, a tripartite committee consisting of the party, the members of the executive, and members of the legislature. I think the members of the executive is led by the vice president, while the party is led by the national chairman of the party, and then the executive, the legislature is led by the Senate President. There is a tripartite committee that was formed with a view to members of the executive and the legislature, since they are coming from the same party, agree on programs and objectives of government before it is brought even to the parliament for deliberations, so that we don't wash our dirty linens in the public as members of the same party. Yes.
Well, okay, that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, all tiers of government must have their eyes on the ball, which I expect, apart from, being whatever the programs are that are being put together by the executive, is the Constitution. Everything must be constitutional. And for the first time, we have 8 parties developmental agenda of Nigeria, to which everybody will be committed, should be committed. Now, having 8 parties, that spread seems to suggest that, we have a nice mix, and so that nothing falls, as it were, between the cracks. Very little falls within the cracks, having about 8, including the ruling party, about 8 parties that are all involved in this. Managing this, I understand that this is for the first time that we've had such, such a pool. Managing this, how easy is it going to be? Because, as I said, apart from the Constitution that will be governing everything, developmental ideas might differ. There's so many of them, and you can't attend to all of them. do you think this is going to be a problem for the, well, not a problem, a challenge for the National Assembly, and in particular the leadership of the National Assembly, accommodating all those views, which is their right to contribute to the pot, so to speak?
It's not going to be a challenge. It is even the pluralism of or multiplicity of parties in the National Assembly is even going to be an advantage rather than a disadvantage to the National Assembly, because it is going to unleash multiplicity of opinions, diversity of opinions in the course of debates in the National Assembly, so that at the end of the day, the outcome of whatever resolutions that we are going to pass will be a replica of the wishes and aspirations or broad consensus of all the component units that make the Nigerian nation state. So it's going to be an advantage to the National Assembly, and the modus operandi of working in the National Assembly is lobbying, reaching out to all representatives across parties, across the nooks and crannies of the country and what have you, so that the resolutions that are going to be passed is a resolution that is agreed upon by all.
Okay, one moment, Senator. I beg your pardon for interrupting.
But definitely
Senator, pardon me, Senator, for interrupting. But I just wanted to bring on Mr. Awolowo, who has called in from Edo State. Good morning, Mr. Awolowo. Well, we lost Mr. Awolowo. Tell you what, maybe we should just take a break so there will be less interruptions than if we hadn't taken it. Let's take this break now, but please stay with us. Senator, we'll be right back to continue this.
Dark marks, I've tried everything. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Okay, then. Well, we're back, and our guest is Senator, representing the Borno North Senatorial District, Mohammed Tahir Monguno. And I had to interrupt. Apologies for doing so. I tried to bring in Mr. Awolowo. Unfortunately, we lost the call. But you were explaining how the wide diversity of the membership, wider diversity of the Senate would not necessarily constitute a problem. You were given the impression that the more the merrier, since it would, accommodate a multiplicity of views. Would you like to continue, please, Senator?
Yes. Well, as we all know, also, where there is serious disagreement in matters of national discourse. In a democracy, the majority will always have their way, while the minority will have their say. So, where there is serious disagreement, I'm referring to the multiplicity of parties in the National Assembly. You met an instance where there is agreement, how is it going to be resolved? I earlier on alluded to the fact that as much as possible, the merrier, the better. Our debates are going to be robust, they are going to be in-depth, and then at the end of the day, whatever resolutions or laws that we are going to pass is going to be a replica of the wishes and aspirations of generality of Nigerians. But this is a democracy. You don't expect that you will always have a consensus on issues. Where there is serious disagreement, the majority will have their way, while the minority will have their say. With the APC, we are the ruling party, we are in majority, and where there is serious disagreement, the views of the ruling party will have its way, because we are in majority.
Okay, let me bring in Chidi. Chidi has called in from Kafanchan. Good morning, Chidi, in Kafanchan.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Good morning, the senator in the House.
Good morning to you, sir.
Yes, as a
It's time for another insightful and exciting.
particularly as it has to do with the National Assembly, these are people that are there on representative capacity. They should have to meet with their constituents, and they have to be regular in doing this, to have feelers from their constituents and extending them to the other tiers of government so that they can now work synergically in order to bring the much-needed succor and making life easy for the Nigerian people. By so doing, it will be very, very easy and prosperous to manage Nigeria's national affairs. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Indeed. Thank you for calling in, Mr. Chidi. I hope you get more calls in, because really we're talking about, as you said, Chidi, the representation of Nigeria divided up into senatorial zones. And as we were saying before, for the first time, we have a greater multiplicity of parties than we have had in the past. But the senator was just saying there, just before we took that call, that, well, at the, last, if it ever comes to that, then the majority will have its say, while the minority will have, the majority will have its way, and hopefully that way is the national way, while the minority will have their say recorded. But yes, we understand that that's the principle basically, but perhaps ideally, we'd have a situation where there would have been all these kind of negotiations among parties, some of them friendly, some of them not so friendly, but all of them civil, just showing the gusto of the members of the National Assembly with Nigeria and the Constitution being the bedrock in putting across these whole ideas. That's, I imagine, what Nigeria wants, and that's what Nigeria will be watching for. And we just hope that all will go. Even though you spoke well of the 9th Assembly, there still are those that felt that they would have appreciated a bit more, how does one put it now, a bit more of a pushback. I think the allegation being that quite a number of bills were sent to the executive for assent, but then they were not assented to. So the thought goes, and the National Assembly left it. Surely, if the National, for example, it's in the past now, we're talking about the 9th Assembly, the situation where if the whole House in its wisdom has put forward, a legislation to the executive for assent, and it is not done so, then it must be interrogated that the executive really has reason not to assent. Otherwise, because we're talking about the balance of powers, no one person has the supreme power, even though the executive, yes, we understand, is driving the ship.
Well, first I want to commend the caller who alluded to the fact that there is need for adequate representation and consultation by members of the National Assembly being representative of the people. I agree with him in total that there is a need for regular consultation and regular visitation to our respective constituencies so that we can have the pillars, peel the pillars of the people as to the programs and government programs that that are being rolled out, whether it touches them, whether it impacts their lives positively or not. That aspect of representation should not be compromised, and it was against this wisdom that legislators are expected to open constituency offices, and they were given five number of aides to assist them towards actualization of that very important aspect of representation. And these aides, some are supposed to work in their respective constituency offices to be part and parcel of the people, hear the views of the people, and then relay to their representative in the National Assembly to guide his decision-making process. I think that is the wisdom behind constituency offices, and then members of the National Assembly should prioritize and give a lot of prominence to that aspect of representation, because that is the only way we will pass laws that are autonomous, laws that reflect the wishes and aspirations of the people. Then we regard to the...
I beg your pardon. Sorry, sir. Let me bring in Emmanuel, who called in from Lekki. Good morning to you, Mr. Emmanuel.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling.
Wisdom.
I'd like to continue with this. Stay with us, please.
It's time for another insightful and exciting experience. TVC Communications announces a call for entries for the 2023 Female Senior Secondary School Debate Championship. To qualify, write an essay of not more than 400 words on the topic, is social media doing more harm than good? Articulate your position on this subject and send in your entry to corporate communications at tvccommunications.tv. Deadline, September 10th, 2023. Join us as we embark on this journey to expose young minds to critical thinking together. This project is powered by the TVC Women's Network.
The TVC News at 7 and the TVC News at 10 are not like any other news broadcast.
It's the big news hour, the hour for the big breaking stories.
We've got some of the best reporters on the field,
Taking you through as it happened.
It's fast-paced, hard-hitting,
With investigations that matter.
bringing in news that affects your life.
With sport, entertainment, and business news, so you don't miss a thing.
Experience resourceful coverage with depth.
Every night.
Lagos is the most visited state in Africa, as the 5th largest economy on the continent. Covering the state and its government is no mean feat, it's a busy beat. We go beyond the curtain of tapes to traveling far into the deep.
I want to thank the Lagos State government for the healthcare facility.
To bring stories that cut across all spectrums.
A greater Lagos shall be ours.
We tell you stories that define our collective well-being as Lagosians. I'm Adedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Indeed, welcome back. And our guest is Senator Mohammed Tahir Mongono. He's representing the Borno North Senatorial District of the country. And unfortunately, we lost the last caller before we went to break, Emmanuel, who had called in from Lekki. Sorry about that, Emmanuel. See if you can get in again. Meanwhile, Noel in Onitsha has called in. Good morning, Noel.
Good morning.
Okay. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I have just two issues to raise. One, I want to ask the distinguishness on the platform on the position of independent candidacy. Independent candidacy.
Sorry, Noah, what do you mean? I mean, Nigeria doesn't have that provision. There are no independent candidates, are there?
Yes, I mean, what's the position of the Senate?
Oh, sorry, Noel, our topic of conversation is the tough task, as it is, of fixing Nigeria and the role of the National Assembly in that. That's our subject of this discussion.
It's all right. Okay, let me go to the second issue.
Okay.
The second issue is the local government system.
I don't know if I can get some more volume here. I can't hear properly. But please continue, Noel.
The local government system. Can we say that?
Yeah. Say that again, please.
The local government system, its administration, whether it is actually a third tier of government, because when you are fixing Nigeria, you are talking about the whole entire tier, the federal, the state, and the local government. So if the local government is also part of a tier, what has it brought to the table? What has it brought to the table? Because some people are asking of its independence or it being recognized as far as the Constitution has provided that it is there. So,
okay then, Noel. I think I got you there. Well, Senator, I think still coming back to this separation of powers matter, there's the executive, there's the legislature, and there's the judiciary. But Noel has now brought in, how do you feel that there is an urgent role and need for the local government system to be, sort of be represented in resolutions and, shall we say, just the practice of the National Assembly? In other words, I guess, he didn't say so, but I guess he's alluding to the fact that the local governments seem in our whole body of politics to be, relegated to the role of the junior partner. Sometimes they're completely ignored.
The National Assembly, with regard to the issue of autonomy of local governments, deserves a pat on the back, in the sense that for about 2 constitutional amendment exercise in the 8th Senate, in the 8th National Assembly, and in the 9th National Assembly, the National Assembly passed a resolution for constitutional amendment to the effect that local government should not only be seen to be autonomous, but should be manifestly be seen to be autonomous in all senses. And that resolution was passed by the 8th National Assembly and the 9th National Assembly, to which I am part and parcel, without a voice of dissent. But for the fact that there is need for concurrence by various state houses of assembly for it to be passed, by the time it went to the State House of Assembly for their concurrence, it did not see the light of the day. So for the National Assembly, it has jealously guarded and protected the issue of the independence and autonomy of local governments against the backdrop of the fact that this is a tier of government that is very close to the people, and if it is properly allowed to function and energize, it has the capacity of bringing about delivery of more dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. With regard to the various mundane issues of governance, like pipe-borne water, sanitation, good quality education at the primary school levels and whatever. These are issues that are supposed to be attended to by the local governments if granted the proper autonomy. So the National Assembly deserves a pat on the back with regard to the issues of the autonomy of local governments, because it has passed those resolutions twice without a single voice of dissent, but it was not concurred to by the state houses of assembly. So the caller from, I think, Onisha should take up the issue with his members of the state houses of assembly, Anambra State House of Assembly.
Well, that was Noel. That was Noel calling in from Onitsha. Thank you very much, Senator. Mazi Okoroafo from Arochukwu is waiting on the line. Good morning to you, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Honestly, sir, Yori, you see, the National Assembly has a lot to do. A lot in the sense that if the promises they gave the constituency where they come from, they have started fulfilling it now, Nigeria will not be complaining about palliative or no palliative. You see, they have a manifesto. Each one or everybody has a manifesto. I was expecting them, when they saw what was going on about this issue of 5 billion to governors and federal capital, that they could have gone back to their president or research, and this one have seen in Abuja. Go back there, at least you have the exam officers, you have the exam offices. Sit down, let the people there they have employed to work for you, gather the things that they're supposed to do, and tell you. Now, 80% or 90% of schools, which is the local government handled schools, that is the basic education, which is the primary and junior secondary school now, are being handled by the local government authority now. At least I was suspecting the honorable madam, knowing fully well that education is paramount important for anybody in this world. They're supposed to go there and find out where can we come in to cushion the fence so that to help the people there to go back to school. But nobody cares. Palliative is not the ultimate. Palliative is when they bring food, you have to give to somebody tonight. You have not equipped that person. It's just like taking a cow to the stream. You can take a horse to the stream. You cannot force that horse to drink water. That is what it means. But they should not because 2022 is around the corner. But what I'm just calling is that now you see the labor people are complaining. Now look at the federal government. Please, Yori, we have to hammer on this issue. The federal government, the president, issued a statement that no universities, polytechnic should increase school fees. Now, research has shown that 90% of schools in Nigeria, federal universities, have increased their school fees. Their tuition they have increased it. Not to talk about the state. Now, tell me, the policy which the federal government issued that no school should increase, and they have done that. And people are sure. When people call the same and say, what is happening? That the school fees. I say, I'm not in the school there. You people should find themselves, find out the solution, what is happening. They say, that the school has increased. Tell me, Nsuka is still correcting. All the universities, what do we do? And we have National Assembly members. They said they have discovered they called the vice chancellors to come and they should make that report open. Let the vice chancellors tell us what is happening with the money that they get them. They have 80% of courses in Nigerian universities have not been accredited. I repeat, have not been accredited. National Assembly finds solution to that. Many students have graduated. They cannot go for NYC because the courses that they told them to see that before they graduate are not accredited. It's affecting the parents. You spend your money to train your child for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 4 years. At the end of the day, the courses are not accredited. And we have a state, we have a country, we have people that are there. Vice chancellors, what are they saying? EFCC, where are you? Go and find EFCC, where are you? Go and find out what is happening.
Okay, Mazi, let me bring it to the senator. I beg your pardon, Mazi. Thank you very much for calling in. Senator, I guess this leans towards the oversight function. We've spoken about, it's not just legislation, but there's also oversight. In other words, the National Assembly has to keep an eye on what's going on in the polity and can step in, especially if represented to, or if it itself, has noticed that there is anything that needs urgent consideration, urgent address. And I guess what Mazi Okorafor was talking about there might well qualify. How do you see it? Does the National Assembly have the capacity so to do?
Well, the National Assembly, as you rightly pointed out, also has, as per the Constitution, the power of oversight on all ministries, departments, and agencies of the government, with a view to not only tracking the budget implementation and also making sure that all the policies and programs that were being executed by various ministries, departments, and agencies are in tandem, not only with the extant laws establishing them, but all other laws and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the grand norm of the land. And it was sequel to that the National Assembly is divided or constituted into various committees for ease of oversight on various ministries, departments, and agencies. For example, in the 7th House of Representatives and the 8th House of Representatives, I was the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture, and sequel to that, we have gone to all the nooks and crannies of the country for the purpose of oversight to see whether the budget is being implemented to the letter with a view to positively impacting on the lives of the people, and to see whether all the agencies of the under the Ministry of Agriculture are working in tandem with the extant laws that establish them or any other law that is in existence in Nigeria. And the National Assembly religiously carries out that responsibility of oversight, as you can see in our various media stations, where members of the National Assembly have gone on oversight, sometimes question the way and manner some projects were executed, and then gave appropriate advice to ministry, department, and agencies, to which advice were adhered to, and then various programs were executed in tandem with the Appropriation Act. And in the present, for example, in the view to bringing the dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. So it's a constitutional responsibility. The power of oversight is clearly enshrined in the Constitution, and sequel to that, the National Assembly was divided into various committees for ease of oversight, and the National Assembly goes on oversight sometimes through its standing committees, or sometimes through the ad hoc committees that were constituted. For example, even in the 10th Senate.
Senator, before the example, so sorry, Senator, before the example, because Kasumu called in from Taraba State and has been waiting for quite a while. Sorry about that. Good morning, Kasumu in Taraba.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
How are you doing? Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. Good morning, our guest, distinguished Senator Bangunu.
Yes. Go ahead. He can hear you.
Okay, sir. Honestly, I really appreciate I like this program. Honestly, definitely the situation in our country lies under our National Assembly. So what the senator is saying, we really need them to do the needful, because we all need our mandate from the local level that will take them to the national level. So we are talking about the local government autonomy. The local government autonomy is one of the major problems we are facing in this country. The State Assembly have passed these issues for the State Assembly to consider it and make it in the light of the day. So to me, I see it as a collaboration between the National Assembly and then the State Assembly. If the National Assembly have the interest for this motion, for this bill, for the local government autonomy to see the light of the day, they not have the right to override the State Assembly to do the needful that will help the masses entirely?
Okay, oh, well, thank you very much. Actually, they can't, but let the senator explain how they must get 2/3 of the assent of the state assemblies in the country. Senator, would you like to address, please, Kasumu's inquiry?
You know, in Nigeria is a constitutional democracy. All our actions or inactions are guided by the clear and unambiguous provisions of the Constitution. So as such, whatever we do is supposed to be within the bounds of the Constitution. As it is now, the Constitution requires the concurrence of 2/3 of the state houses of assembly for that bill to pass. And there's nothing we can do about it. That is the clear and unambiguous of the provision of the Constitution, and the Constitution did not go further to give powers to the National Assembly to override what the non-concurrence of the state houses of assembly where there is non-concurrence. So we are a constitutional democracy, our hands are tied, and whatever we do must be within the limits and bounds of the provision of the Constitution. We are not supposed to act ultra-vires the provisions of the Constitution. That is why I told the caller from Onitsha that they should hold the Anambra State House of Assembly to account if the the Anambra State House of Assembly has not concurred to the provision to that amendment. So, and ditto to the caller from Jalingo, if, as per the records, the Taraba State House of Assembly has not concurred to that provision, they should hold into account the Taraba State House of Assembly, and more particularly, the member that represents him from Jalingo, whether he has voted for or against that amendment, because these are records that are supposed to be in the public domain, and whatever as representative of the people that we do in the discharge of that function should be a subject of public scrutiny. So the way and manner your representatives voted.
I'm sorry, Senator. I beg your pardon. You must forgive my apparent bad manners in always interrupting you. It's the way it is. Our last call, Mr. George calling in from Lagos. Good morning to you, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to the guest. Uncle Yori, the topic of today's discussion is National Assembly and the tough task of fixing Nigeria. In terms of fixing Nigeria, we are seeing what the executive is doing. They are saying it's no longer business as usual. The president is creating new ministries and departments. The ministers are hitting the ground running. But I am not seeing the same thing in the legislative arm. What we see, rather, is business as usual. Quarrels with MPAs for not honoring invitation. You come, you have 2 days, 3 days session, you go on 1 month recess. These new departments and ministries that are being created, they need legislation. We want to see a change of attitude towards legislation in Nigeria.
Okay, let me bring I beg your pardon, Mr. George, for interrupting you too. Apparently, I'm doing it to both sides this morning. I'm so sorry to both of you. But, Senator, because we've almost run out of time, take that up, will you?
Please, the National Assembly is also equally desirous of making a change, because this 10th National Assembly is a National Assembly that is seriously desirous of making a difference in the way and manner things are done. By the time we start functioning full blast, all the differences that the National Assembly is desirous of will be seen. This issue of going on recess is something that is in our rules. It's something that is in our rules. Unless the rules are amended, definitely we have to go on recess. And this recess did not start with the 10th National Assembly. It has been the tradition since the inception of democracy in 1999. So the National Assembly has been inaugurated. Our committees were formed, constituted a day before we went on recess. By the time we come back, as initiated in our legislative agenda, we are definitely going to make a difference that will revolutionize the socio-economic dynamics of this country in tandem with the renewed hope agenda of the present administration. So excellent. Definitely a lot.
At stage, let me just say that I'm so sorry, Senator. Excellent, indeed. So I guess really my summary would be that what Nigerians are looking forward to, because they're looking forward to much, generally speaking, in the National Assembly, they would want indeed for you to support the National Assembly, to support the executive where necessary, and indeed to oppose the executive where necessary. Do you feel, do you think that you'll be able to deliver on that score?
Definitely. As I told you earlier on, the relationship between the executive and the National Assembly or the legislature is supposed to be a mutually symbiotic relationship, since all of us were voted into power with a view to delivering dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. We have to cooperate and we have to understand each other, cross-pollinate ideas with a view to discharging that onerous responsibility of delivery of peace, order, and good governance to the people of this country. But where there is obvious or deliberate encroachment upon the powers of the National Assembly as enshrined in Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, be rest assured, I'm going to assure Nigerians that this 10th National Assembly is going to stand up its responsibility and will jealously guard and protect its independence and also stop all the excesses of the executive, whether in terms of executive recklessness or executive arrogance in the discharge of their duties. That much I assure them. But it's supposed to be a mutually symbiotic relationship, especially against the backdrop of the fact that the executive is led by the APC, while the National Assembly is equally led by the APC. So there is consensus at IDEM as to the programs and money.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. I beg your pardon. Thank you very much, Senator. That's a fine place at which to leave it, and we owe you our appreciation. Senator Mohammed Tahir Mongono, legal practitioner, and Senator representing Borno North Senatorial District. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this morning. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.
Is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Are you worried about the safety and security of your home at night? Do you wish to know when intruders come close to your home? Or do you want to protect what matters to your family from anywhere at any time? What